Alrighty, let's go. Welcome back to the best trader I know. I'm joined by lowercaseboot, who has been in the crypto markets for some time. So excited to ask him some questions, figure out where his love for this background image came from, as well as the fact that he decided to name himself lowercaseboot. Hopefully ask some questions around some of the stuff that he's been tweeting, as I think what he tweets out on the main is quite interesting to read and get an understanding of what's going on a sort of lower time frame level in the markets. The date is the 4th of August 2025, with BTC trading at the price of, fuck, I actually don't have it in front of me. What's the price of BTC? um,
Like 114. Eight.
$114,000 with a little sell off over the weekend. So, yeah, dude, thank you for joining, Boot. I appreciate that. And yeah, excited to have you on. How are you?
Good, yeah, no worries, man. I'm always happy to jump on streams and podcasts and shit like that. But best trader I know is probably not the it's not an acronym, not a euphemism, whatever. Not the terminology I would use to describe myself. But yeah, you
Uh,
can call me that. I'll take it.
I'll take him. I'll give it to you, man. Honestly, let's we just need someone to come on and give us a 100x that they've done recently, enough to sort of boost their follower account. To get a little bit more traction. So yeah, I don't think I'm a great trader either. So I'm hoping I can get more people with alpha on this show. That's the goal. But yeah, when did you first hear about crypto, and how did you get involved?
Um, I had exposure to crypto. Well, I don't know if I say this, but like there were websites in the olden days where you would barter for goods or services
Mm,
using Bitcoin,
yeah,
and that's how I first got exposed to crypto. But being the retard that I was, I didn't look into it any further, despite being someone who was very tech forward,
yeah,
like and into tech. I just like I mean, I was there like in the early days, and I don't know, probably had like 10, 15 Bitcoin on some shitty wallet or whatever. Like, I didn't even know what it would be
yeah,
for goods and services. And yeah, like then, like after that, probably around like 2017, 2018, like started to like just read about crypto,
yeah.
like, and like to dip my toe in the water a little bit. And I didn't kind of remember what I bought, like maybe $500 worth of stuff. But it wasn't really until like 2020
Yeah.
in the pandemic when I was like extremely bored, and I just kept seeing, but the stock market was just booming, and I'm like, I made like a bunch of cash off the stock market. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what I roll this into? And then like I just was like I'm gonna go exploring, and I saw some like videos on YouTube with that Justin Khan guy, the guy who made Twitch, and he was talking about like NFTs.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, that sounds pretty interesting. And like did some research and ended up on like Nifty Gateway back in like the end of 2020, start of 2021, where it was like the art NFT space.
Yeah.
And like that's literally how I got onboarded on to crypto, like through flipping art NFTs and like
Really.
making friends with all these like, yeah, because there's like a whole bunch of like OG ETH people and like OG crypto people who were there because like they were already rich, and like they were like crypto rich in 2020, right? Like, and they had been around for DeFi summer and all this stuff. So it's like that was just a good place to meet people. Like, and crypto was still like kind of small,
Yeah.
I guess, at the end of 2020 and the start of 2021. So it was like a great place to meet like a whole bunch of people who'd been in the industry for a long time. And who had done cool and interesting things and like built protocols, like, you know, been heavy into DeFi and stuff. And then this was like the movement against that, which was the art NFT scene, and like, which led to, I guess, the, you know, the NFT summer of 21 and 22
Yeah.
kind of movement. But this is the beginnings of that stuff. So like, that's how I got in. And then like, you know, to be able to, you're trading kind of on this centralized art platform and you're cashing out in ETH, and then it's like giving you exposure to ETH, and then you're like, all right, well, what else can you do with ETH, like on chain? And like that's when, you know, people started to look for art on chain,
Yeah.
and then because of that, you start going, okay, cool, like I have to use like Uniswap to swap this, and like I have to on ramp via decentralized exchange and et cetera, and like you just start having to learn how to then like be more competent than somebody else with the gas function on Ethereum, with priority fee, etc.,
Yeah.
to be able to get the piece of NFT art before them, and you just start becoming technically proficient based on, I don't know, like the not demand, but like I guess it was like there's way more friction in that day, and like the more you knew about the tech, the better edge you had.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's kind of like I was a huge Ethereum maxi because all I knew was Ethereum back in those days. But yeah, NFT art got me into crypto, and then like NFTs got me crypto, and then once I had crypto, yeah, I don't know, like I kind of was never like hugely into like trading stuff. I just held like majors
Yeah.
until like I didn't buy any meme coins until 2023.
Oh
Like I
wow.
had zero. Yeah. And then but like again, I had been trading since the end of 2020, right? Like so trading just NFTs and stuff like that, just no coins. Like maybe I took some exposure to some ETH tokens that were native for like some project or something like that, but I wasn't like looking for meme specific coins. Like it was always project coins or utility coins.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't tell you what my first meme coin that I bought was. Maybe it was 2022, maybe it was 2023, but yeah, like it was around that window.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Like if I can just touch on the stocks to NFT, like my understanding of someone that looks into stocks is very calculated, very like Excel spreadsheet. They're trying to look for P&E ratios, all that sort of jazz. How did you like? What was that transition like going from stocks to NFTs?
Oh, I mean, I didn't bother with any of that bullshit with the
Okay.
stock stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't like looking at EBITDA. What he said, EBITDA,
EBITDA.
EBITDA,
Yeah.
EBITDA, whatever the fuck, whatever that word is, that stupid word. I didn't bother with any of that shit. I was just like, okay, is this thing what something? Is this company a company that people will use and need? Like, I made heaps of money off like the buy now, pay later stuff and
Oh,
like
really?
debt collection and
Like Afterpay?
like some of the yeah, and some of the and there's like the what's the debt collection agency called? I can't remember what it's called. Brad and Dunn, something like Dunn Street, like this huge debt collection agency. Because I was like, all right, well, the buy now, pay. Everybody's got a fucking stimmy from the government. Everybody's spending more and taking more of the buy, like going on this buy now, pay later stuff, which like it's fucking mooning. So like, and I already had exposure to that. So I'm like, people will go into debt in uncertain economic times, especially when there's a crash, right? They have to take on debt to be able to acquire basic stuff. So I was like just using that kind of logic. And then I'm like, all right, well, if they're taking on debt, they have to pay back debt and service debt. So therefore, debt collection will be an industry that will go up too.
Yeah.
The two industries will move in tandem. So I don't know that's like more thesis investing. So I was like thesis investing in the stock market. And then I pivoted over to crypto where like, the art stuff, you're not really, I mean, you are thesis investing. You're like, this guy is going to be famous because of blah, 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 blah. This will be in demand because of X, Y, and Z. And so like, you just kind of take that logic over. But like thesis investing has been much more useful in meme coins than it ever was with NFTs, to be clear.
Yeah, right. Like, so I guess two questions here. How do you explain that in terms of like thesis investing in comparison to like NFTs and meme coins? Like, what's the actual difference there between those two?
Like NFTs was kind of like, look, I always was like hugely risk averse.
Mm,
I know it sounds weird to be in crypto, but I was very risk averse with this kind of stuff. So like, I would always look for something to make sense. And in the early NFT days, it didn't really matter. But I was
yeah,
like, nah, that looks shit. That looks dumb. Like that's not gonna. No one's gonna want to have that as a PFP. And like in those days, everything kind of just went up. So like it wasn't the best logic, but there was a moment in time when it kind of flipped and people became more in tune and looking for like better looking stuff to like represent digital identity. And that's like I made like money by like specifically picking like stuff that I thought would be in demand for a PFP. So that's how I used a thesis to be like, well, people will much rather tether their digital identity to this because it looks good. And certain people in the industry are already doing that. Therefore, I think the price of this will go up because they'll influence the market, etc.
yeah. Okay, so following that sort
So
of
looking at
cultural
whole,
trend and then trying to get
yeah,
into
yeah,
PFPs. Yeah,
correct. Looking at it from a cultural perspective rather than just buy everything and flip it immediately. Like try and hold some of the stuff. Like Doodles was a big one
yeah.
because like I missed out on the mint of it, but I got it like really close after the mint. And it was like super cheap. I think it was like zero point 0.2 Ethereum. But they went to 15 Ethereum, right? A piece.
Yeah,
So you didn't have to like do heaps of stuff. Like again, like I was there when Bored Apes were like minting, and like I minted one, but my transaction got stuck because I put through too low of a gas priority fee, and I just couldn't be bothered to fix it because I'm like, I'll just wake up tomorrow and I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, and then it never got processed, so I still have a stuck transaction. Like that. I mean, if I think it got processed eventually, but there was nothing to mint. So yeah, like that stuff. Like I was around for all of that, and
Wow.
there's plenty of retards that just minted everything and made heaps of money who didn't actually understand the market at all. It was just that everything was going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's proper insane though, right? Because I think the Bored Ape one stands out because that was the one where you could mint for 0.05 ETH and then it literally went to hundreds of ETH. Like it was a proper,
Yeah.
like if you were just dumb enough to kind of get four or just spend one ETH grabbing that many, it's like you probably could have set yourself up for retirement, really, like generational wealth.
Oh, Franklin had 40 apes or something, or 45 apes or some shit like that when they were worth like, 200 Ethereum each. So, and now he has no money. So, it is what it is. Like a lot of those people got super lucky and then didn't cash out. Or like rolled it back into other bullshit NFTs and stuff like that. Like there was this one guy in this friendship group that we had, and he spent like 250 Ethereum on gas alone to
Fuck.
mint this bullshit. And he had like a portfolio run up of like $5, $6, $7 million, and now he has no money.
Oh
Like
my
like
god.
he's literally broke because these retards would not cash out. They just kept rolling it into more and more bullshit, and that's the difference. Like the people that were like the more savvy investors who were like, all right, well, these are going to be like the culture pieces that will last longer, or these are like the really high tier NFT artists who will outlast because they have a huge kind of crypto following. Like there's still people that flip NFT art, like because
Yeah.
like it's still a in demand
Yeah.
sector of this market. So like those people came out of that NFT run with money. I think a lot of people actually made a shitload of money in the NFT run, but then just don't understand meme coins and just like couldn't move across to that vertical because it's a completely different space. But for me, because I was always like much more on the tech side of things, like I was like working for like a NFT studio, like helping them do launches and stuff like that. So I knew the intricacies of like what smart contracts did and stuff, and like how to mint from contract and like how to do everything on Etherscan and like
Yeah.
and how to gas things up perfectly and like run all of the custom features on MetaMask, etc. Pre-bot days to do that stuff. So like I had a technical edge, and because of that, it wasn't hard for me to transfer over into to flip an Ethereum meme coins. So essentially, it's just an NFT with a liquidity pool basically. So it was
Yeah.
no different.
Yeah.
And even still in those days, if you had the tech edge on top of people, like you were processing transactions before them because they didn't understand how like block space and stuff worked and things like that. So
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Before I get to you to kind of explain like the meme coin vertical, because I think the trading of the meme coins is quite unique in the sense that it was a very big theme of this cycle. Were there any other trades that you did outside of Doodles that were similar, or any other that were like PFP flipping or NFT flipping that had different investment
mm,
pieces that you did?
yeah, I mean heaps. Like I couldn't even tell you. Like
Yeah.
Doodles is just an example of something that I like made like a bigger amount of money off. But I made like again, I minted 25 pudgy penguins,
Oh, no
right?
way.
And I sold them for a loss. So
Oh,
uh,
dude.
yeah, there's plenty of examples around this stuff of like yeah, like because you had no idea, but like yeah, there's just so much bullshit that I made money off. But
Yeah.
like I didn't do nearly as well as I could have done in the NFT cycle because of the fact that I was way more risk averse and I was looking for things to make sense.
Yeah.
Whereas now, having been here for 5 years, 5.5 years, nearly 6 years, I understand that you need to be dumb before you are smart,
Yeah.
right? You turn your brain off in a stupid way you buy, and then you are smart to sell,
Yeah.
and you use your logic to take profit. But you need to have that degree of like, all right, I'm just going to buy 50 of these NFTs and then walk away for 1 month and do something like, you know, again, like, and selling them is quite hard because you can call it they're like a liquid assets, right? So it's like it was much more complicated to offload, and you have to like be really strategic about it, and like the floor can completely crash. But like, yeah, some lessons around that helped me with meme coins as well, to be like, all right, well, like be more ruthless in selling and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
get the profit where you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fact that you summarize you need to be done before you are smart, like that is really well put. I guess jumping to meme coins, do you have any examples of, I guess, a strategy around meme coins, what you were sort of looking for, maybe on the Ethereum network before transitioning to Solana? Like, what were some of the themes that were different this time around that you needed to be mindful of in order to achieve, I guess, success across this sort of vertical?
Well, it was just a transition
Yeah,
because NFTs were essentially like, I mean, we didn't call them cults, but they were kind of communities formed around this like digital identity.
yeah,
But then we went past that and we went to forming communities or cults, but we just called it community at the start around like, you know, these culture coins.
yeah,
And in the early days, like no one had really like fundamentally outlined what that was. And a lot of this stuff was like there were like certain sectors of the NFT space, like the MF crew and like this is I wasn't a Milady back then, but like there's like the MFS kind of NFT group was like really like, I guess, tech savvy guys, like, and
mm,
like they were pure Ethereum maxis. So it was more the culture of the NFT had certain tokens associated with it that was kind of like in it, like a bucket. It's hard to explain, but like the culture itself wasn't specifically the token. The culture itself was only the token in the community that was the NFT project, right? And because of that, a lot of people took meme coin exposure beforehand, like with that mindset. And then when NFTs went to shit, I mean, they already were at shit, but like when they completely went to shit, people took the mindset of like, okay, culture, community. All right, well, we had that with this NFT, but like, let's actually build it around this token. And a lot of those early tokens were like Mog, Pepe. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Like, yeah, like, I mean, I was in Mog like week one
yeah,
and Pepe like week one. Again, I exited Pepe at like 50 million or something. I thought I was a genius, right? Like, because I got in so early, and I sold the first run of Mog at like 8 million or something. And I'm like, yeah, man, awesome. And then ended up buying back in like a couple of months later at like 20 million or something.
yeah.
But like, I had like trillions of Mog and like, I don't know, like I probably had millions of dollars worth of Pepe,
I mean, at least you
probably
took
more
your own
than.
advice, right? Taking profits early, you know. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But a lot of people I know from that era just held like retards and then walked away with like 8 figures. Like I had the same portfolio size as them. I mean at that time I had way bigger, way more money than them because I'd come off NFT season. Like they were like new entrants to the market, but now they're like, you know, orders of magnitude more wealthy than I am.
Yeah. So what you're saying is I got the wrong person on the BTIK podcast, is what you're saying.
Well, that's the question: is like, is the best trader the one who uses logic and goes through and looks at this stuff cycle over cycle, like multi-cycling, or is the best trader the person who hits one really good trade and just held it retardedly and sold it at the top? Like
Mm,
they made the most money, but are they the better trader?
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Just correct me if I've got this wrong. So when you were talking about the cultural impact or significance of the meme coins, are you saying that a coin would launch? Let's use Mog as an example. The coin would launch and then kind of be a little bit obsolete, but you were buying in anticipation that I guess people would form, like active communities would then form around those tokens later on down the track, which made them worthwhile to buy up when they were a little bit obsolete. Is that what you were sort of saying there?
They already were formed around it. Like
Oh,
so, there
okay.
was like
Yeah.
a whole bunch of like Twitter Spaces back in the day that were run by a lot of the core people from Mog. I mean, it was basically run by Bandit. I don't know if you know who she is, but like she was one of the OG Mog and Pepe whales and stuff like that,
Yeah.
who came out of MFs. Like she like entered the space in 2023 and like hit those trades, and they were like
Oh, right.
generational wealth trades. But she was like running these spaces every day with like hundreds of people in them, and then that's was the community. But those community held a bucket of tokens, which was, you know, all the Ethereum stuff, and then they went on to basically push the narrative that coins were communities and coins were culture and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So all of those big whales, like the ETH whales and stuff, like spawned from that, like the early days. Like I have a heap of ETH whale friends,
Yeah.
because I knew them pre-whale status and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense too, because I think the idea of a meme coin, in terms of like a risk to reward or a great trade to have taken, buying Mog and Pepe really early post the FTX collapse would have probably yielded some of the better results from trading. So um, yeah, not
well,
surprising.
people
Yeah.
held them, people held those coins like they were NFTs, right?
Yeah.
That is also something to consider. Like this is like the whole time wasn't like 30 seconds. It wasn't even like 1 week. It was like months. Like people would hold them for months
Yeah.
because they just weren't as volatile. And the like I still had the mindset of like coming off NFTs to like not believe in anything because all of this is bullshit. So I would sell way early.
Yeah.
You know, I would sell for like 3, 4x, 5x, 10x, whatever, and be like, yeah, fuck you. Like profit is profit. But the people that really believed in the cult status of these coins, because they came at the end of the NFT run and had held onto the core beliefs of that stuff without having seen the realities of all that stuff going to zero.
Yeah.
They then transposed that to these coins, and then they became like cult coins, which they literally held from like, you know, 1 million to 1 billion, and obviously hit some absolutely belter trades. Like I think it's more advantageous to have entered the market at the start of 2023 than to have done it at the NFT through the NFT run.
Mm. Mm. That's really
Because
interesting.
naivety can sometimes force you to hold, right? Because you
Yeah.
believe the hopium.
Yeah, I think the way that you framed it makes a lot of sense as well, because I remember buying, and I actually can't believe it's taken me this long to kind of like click with this, but I remember going onto the Ticker Bitcoin website, and I saw all of the memes, all of the content that they had on this website. And I remember I was like watching it and just laughing at work. And then my mate was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, "Ah, you just wouldn't understand." And then I bought some, and I minted the Sprotos for free, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
sell it because I didn't realize why I didn't sell it either. I wasn't really like that interested in trying to like really trade the lower time frames. I just thought that the vibe of what they had was like really funny, and like the community was strong. Like the people that were posting about it on Twitter were just really funny. And I didn't realize it was because of the fact that it was more similar to the communities forming around this as if it was similar to NFTs. And I remember that period of time where Pepe went to $1 billion. Mog did really well, and Ticket Bitcoin did alright from its inception, but probably not as good as those others. But it makes so much sense the way that you frame it, in the sense that, you know, it was those sort of trades you could have taken because they were more similar to communities being formed around these coins rather than trades to have taken. It was like people were more inclined to hold this stuff during that period of time.
Yeah, and they built a much stronger floor.
Yeah,
Because again, you had people that are used to holding like NFTs for like 6 months or a year,
yeah,
pivoting into these coins that were heavily pushed by those NFT communities and those like Twitter spaces. And there was just less coins, right? So like there was less noise and there was less cool ones, and people wanted the cool stuff. Like,
yeah,
you know, you could argue like Mog and Pepe are like cool coins. Like they're not retarded like half this stuff is.
yeah,
So it was a very different time, and like, yeah, you definitely could have made generational wealth there. I did not, but I learned a lot of lessons about that. Like that's essentially my first foray into meme coins. I mean, I had some stuff earlier in the year, like Turbo, like that Rhett the artist's coin and stuff like that, and but really not much more. Like, I mean, I wasn't really playing around
mm,
with memes on EVM, but after that, like once I was like fully in the mix and fully like, because again there's a lot of my friends doing that stuff, like I started to get like hugely exposed, and then like started to like look for fresh pairs and stuff. Like I also took like a big holiday in the middle of that year because I was like burnt out from NFTs, and like
yeah,
I was like away for like 6 months, and then I came back and I was like, oh hey Bandit, like hook me up with your Telegram group, like where you're trading and stuff. And she's like, all right, you're in.
You're in.
And like then I got like I just started like trading with all of them like a fucking nut and stuff like
Nice.
that. So yeah.
That's really cool. I feel like the NFTs were very receptifying behavior, right? Like I feel like the idea of like a shiny object as a collectible fried a lot of people's brains. So I don't blame you for taking like 6 months off.
Yeah, I don't even own this Milady anymore. People think that I do. I sold it like 6 months ago for like at the top, and I just said we'll never get rid of it as a PFP because it's mine now. I own the brand, so but no one notices. So I'm like, fuck it, whatever, just keep it.
That's actually hilarious. You own the brand and you don't
I
even know where it
refuse.
is.
I refuse to take it away. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nah, I rate that. I rate that. I also think it's really the way that you summarize the meme coins is actually really switched on because I think a lot of people, even myself, were just buying and holding in the sense that it was like bag holder sort of syndrome. Like there wasn't really much else to do, so why not hold like the funny sort of cooler coins? But the fact that you've seen it as this was going to rally because the floor was built out quite well, and that it would be easy for communities to form around these, and the fact that you were talking to people that were early to that sort of stuff, I think that's a pretty switched on sort of position to be in. So I think you killed it there. I had a question. How has your view of crypto changed over the years from, I guess, hearing about it in 2017, 2018 to getting involved after stocks, NFTs, meme coins? Like, how has that changed over the years?
I'm much more cynical about it now.
Yeah,
Um, in in 2020, 21, 22, like again, I thought NFTs were bullshit, but I thought the underlying tech was interesting and that people would do interesting stuff with it, especially brands around loyalty and all that stuff and build out like huge ecosystems on blockchain rails and stuff like that. But then I realized that was all bullshit. Like, or that's way down the line, or like, why would they bother? Like, why do they need blockchain for that? You could just do it with the Web2 application. Like, you don't need to use blockchain rails for this stuff. So, like,
yeah,
and then the casinoification of like everything and like the hyper extraction of the Solana years like kind of completely jaded me to the market where I think it's a complete bullshit industry.
really,
I think crypto as an asset to be held, you know, if you're looking to speculate on, an alternative market, right? You're holding BTC or Ethereum in those treasury companies because, you want access to different financial markets for the price of this stuff to go up makes a lot of sense. And then the other application of stablecoins makes a ton of sense, right?
yeah,
Frictionless, you know, sending of money internationally.
yeah,
Um, and some DeFi applications like, earning yield off that kind of stuff makes a lot of sense as well.
yeah,
But and again, even DAOs make a lot of sense, right? Like even though people hate them, they do make a lot of sense for like alternative structures of organization and things like that. But fundamentally, like I think crypto is bullshit, and like it is hard because it's an industry that has been so good to me, but it's hard to see past the vaporware and the smoke and mirrors and like the narrative grift of all of it.
yeah,
Um, and I do wish we could go back in time to something like 2022, where people were like, there was a little bit more purity to the market, even though it was still the same VC grift, right? Like it was still the exact same thing. There just was less negativity, and it was just like this has just become like the hyper greed arc,
yeah,
um, which is just again, it's become. It was always a casino, but now it's like literally a casino. Like it's like slot machines versus playing poker. Playing poker, you actually have to know the hand. Like you need to know the odds.
yeah,
You can win by being technically more proficient, right?
yeah,
Technically, having more knowledge. But with the slot machines, like I mean, people are winning the slots by knowing, which machine to play as opposed to, any skill set.
yeah, yeah. That's I think the way that you summarize the slot machines, I feel like that is um, it's like you said, you kind of it's not you still have the smoke and mirrors, but it's like it's quite apparent that there is extraction going on. It's not as if it's like someone's like getting caught up on the wrong side of good intentions. It's like it's fairly obvious that extraction is what they're trying to achieve. Like um,
Mm-hmm.
I think Base is doing a little bit of that with Zora and that pivot from, I think it
Yeah.
was like an Instagram sort of platform with NFTs to coining content, which was, shock, very similar to Pump.Fun, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact of the revenue that it made. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's very slot machine orientated from, I guess, the the likes of the base ecosystem, or Coinbase and so forth. Do you think that? And I'm thinking of this in the sense of like a euthanasia roller coaster. It only gets kind of worse from here, and more. The pumps are smaller. It's more max extraction across different ecosystems. But do you see a scenario where, I don't know if authenticity is the right word, but there's some sort of change in that where it can go back to being a little bit more like playing poker versus the slot machines?
It can, but it will be in like smaller ecosystems. And as you said, the pumps will be smaller, right? So
Yeah,
I think it will be that. Look, meme coins are dead. Like they are.
yeah,
This is like the death throes of NFTs. So like this is where you're going to complete capital preservation mode and don't buy bullshit. You
yeah,
just like buy the stuff that you think can come back with a good narrative arc because it is inherently higher quality and will be seen as higher value than other bullshit in the industry. And again, some of it will just be crimed back, right? So there's kind of like there's two pathways, and some of it will be seen as higher value and crimed, right?
yeah,
So that's why the average participant cannot enter the market right now and make money. Like they would just like lose and lose. Like I onboarded my brother like about a month ago, and like we bought some coins, and like he was up like a fair bit. Like I lent him the money though, but like he was up a fair bit, and he was like, I'm just going to hold. And like, he was asking my advice on trades and stuff. I was like, well, just go with the flow and see what you think. And like now he's down horrendous. And
fuck,
I can't even onboard him with like my advice and like, well, not advice. I can't give him financial advice, but like obviously with him asking me questions, I can't even onboard him successfully because like it's just too extractive. And that's me basically like, one to one working with the guy,
yeah,
right? So like to me, like there is no hope in bringing new participants in these market conditions
yeah,
unless they are creating their own coins and building their own vertical around it, because then they can do that in like a more safe way.
mm,
Or until we get a new meta, because basically I think the biggest issue was the friction reduction, because every bot and tooling system made trading easier. So the people that were so stupid that they couldn't trade before because they didn't know how to do anything now can do it with like one click, and they
yeah,
can multi-wallet on one click, and they can multi-dump on one click. So it removed the barrier, because before you actually had to know what you were doing to win. Now you don't have to know what you're doing to win. You just have to like there's tons of people that would just like ruthlessly launch hundreds of coins a day
yeah,
and just send them to their friendship groups and pretend they find the contract, and then like farm $100, $200, $500 a day off their friends. And like it because of LPs and the ability to liquidate like immediately, it turned everybody into like everybody. This space has cannibalized itself because the people that made the most money have got it and preserved it. The people that made good money are probably still trying to make heaps of money, so they're still gambling and dipping their toes in the water.
yeah,
And the people that made nothing became pure predators, and like really because they couldn't ever trade, so started to rug people, and they became like prolific ruggers. And
yeah,
there's tons of KOLs that are like this, like they're prolific ruggers who had no trading ability. Their ability was to build the GC, pretend to be experts, and then use that group chat for exit liquidity, and then get their wallet copy traded, and then like because copy trading is not a skill. Like
mm,
it's like you got people to pay attention because you had good P&Ls, because you rugged a group chat to build the point of like getting copy traded by the greater community, and then just like started to print from that. So like, and then the people in those group chats and like or peripheral to those group chats saw that behavior and became predators themselves. So like everybody is now a predator, whereas like in the old days of NFTs, people genuinely believed in the brand and you couldn't instantly liquidate. So it was very hard to dump on your friends
yeah,
back in those days, right? Moreover, like you couldn't obfuscate like who owned an NFT, um, because you couldn't run it through, like you couldn't swap out of the token and then use a bridging service and then change back to something. Like there was just no, like you still had the NFT, right? So like, and people didn't really. I'm sure it happened, but it was much less. It was much less prolific because again, you just would sell NFTs into bids because
yeah,
as people were putting the bid up, and like it wasn't dumping specifically on friends and stuff. But yeah, that's exclusively what happens now in 90% of the industry. It's
Yeah.
just people trying to extract. I mean, I've seen it in the Australian space. There's people coming in and literally dumping on Australians, like specifically using them for their own personal enrichment and exit liquidity, which is just predatory behavior. Like it's just disgusting.
Yeah. The way that you outlined that, I thought was really good. You talked about how people that have money, they preserve it. People that have some money are now trying really hard to make more of it, and then those that have nothing or are poor, they become predators. If you could like jump into the minds of those people that have money and preserving it, do you think they're less interested in crypto, or do you think, or perhaps maybe they're looking for an opportunity to get back in? Like, how do you analyze what I guess those money allocators are doing currently?
They are interested in crypto. They don't need to trade daily to make money, but
Yeah,
they are dissatisfied with the space because the trust erosion has been astronomical.
yeah,
And so they're not interested in being used as exit liquidity because they've already probably had substantial loss from being used as exit liquidity
yeah,
or being used as a bullish catalyst to make a coin go up. So like a lot of those important players in this space are not participating right now because of the risk to their portfolio and to their reputation. The medium level players are still participating because they want to keep making more money.
yeah,
Um, and obviously, people don't try and necessarily use a medium level player to pump coins as much because they don't have as much motion. So like,
yeah,
I think they're still participating. So like, someone now with like 100K USD is probably considered like somewhat of like a high net worth individual in trading circles, which is, back in the day that wouldn't be considered that.
yeah,
And then I'm not saying that the lower end of the spectrum is all predators, but
yeah,
a lot of them turned into predators to be able to get onto the rung of the ladder because coins became extractive or they got preyed upon. So they flipped the switch and started launching their own tokens and stuff like that. And again, there was no such thing. I mean, there probably was, but back in the days, people would like because the developing coins was gate kept. You had to have technical proficiency to develop coins. So
yeah,
therefore, when you were in group chats, people were sharing tokens of coins that weren't theirs. And
yeah,
if you got rugged, you all got rugged together, and there was a sense of trust.
yeah,
And when you made money, you all made money together. And again, look, you could nuke the chart on your friends, but like that was like more of like a slap on the wrist. Like, try not to do that. Try not to nuke on us. Like
yeah,
versus like now, because the friction to be a dev is gone, everybody can be a dev, and everybody is. They're like sending like, oh, look at this gem I found and stuff like that. It's like so like there is no trust anywhere in the industry anymore. Like from the bottom up,
yeah,
that the top is paranoid about the bottom or like paranoid about getting back into the market. The middle is paranoid about getting rugged by the bottom, and the bottom is paranoid about not making it. So therefore, is like putting CAs in every chat to extract liquidity. And again, I mean, there's probably people at the top who are putting CAs into every chat, and people in the middle doing the same thing. So
yeah,
it's like everybody. It's PvP when before it was player versus dev, and the dev was some guy who was far removed from your circle. Now the dev is like three guys in your group chat.
yeah. Um, yeah, wow. Um, do you see that trend changing, and what do you think is a catalyst for that? Because I think you touched on trust erosion is causing the top end to not be involved. What would you sort of need to see change for everyone to become more involved in crypto again to kind of drive that excitement, money to, I guess, not cause like a market to go up, but more so to be encouraging of wanting to bring in new people into the space.
I think it will be more along the lines of launch pads with Rails, which limit the developer or people being able to speculate on stuff in a way that isn't having to participate directly in the token.
Yeah,
Um, because I mean, look, you could look at the Pasternak and the Believe ecosystem as somewhat of like a launchpad on Rails, in that the coins that go up are somewhat tied to a product, and you can't just make a product on the spot. I mean, you can, but like it's much harder to bullshit a real product. So therefore, the dev is somewhat of a real person. Like it's so much harder to rug someone on a Believe coin
Yeah.
because it's not. You couldn't possibly have made it. Like
Gotcha.
it's
Yeah.
linked to like like a specific creator or company or whatever, right? So like that meta is what will give people more confidence to bid with size. Otherwise, people are going to bid more established tokens like mid to high cap stuff because they
Yeah.
already know that the dev is proven and hasn't already rugged.
Yeah.
The low cap meta will completely disappear. Like it is beyond pointless to bid any new coin. Like just wait till it gets to 1 million and see if it gets rugged or not, and then go in. If it's going to go to 100 million, you're fine.
Yeah.
Again, nothing goes to 100 million anymore, but like you can still make a 10x of a 1 million coin. Like you don't need to enter it 100k. Like
Yeah.
it's just pointless.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. That's
So like the trust will get shaped out by kind of game theory dictating that you cannot make money off these low cap coins. Therefore, people start launching less low cap coins, and because people start launching less low cap coins, they will start sharing less low cap CAs. Because of that, trust will build back because people will have to build established coins, or they'll have to bid established coins, or look for value in like bigger ecosystem tokens again,
yeah.
which are unruggable by their friends, etc. So like the PvP will be toned down
Yeah.
by
So
virtue of game theory.
so it sort of cannibalizes itself out of existence for the really low cap scammy sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'll disappear. Like that'll completely go. Like it's already on the way out. Like yeah.
Yeah. Didn't think of it like that. That's really smart, actually. Yeah. Cool. Um, I guess if you had to summarize, and you'd kind of done this already, but I thought I'd throw it back to you again. If you had to summarize market conditions currently, how would you interpret it?
I think it's interesting to look at it because like on chain is terribly bad, but like the consumer end of crypto is going crazy.
Yeah.
Like
And what is consumer end of
like
crypto
Bitcoin's
for you?
doing like XRP,
Yeah.
like people just like trading, you know, sex listed stuff, like,
Okay.
or like vaporware tokens and stuff like that. I mean, I think like a good example of this is like collective shift, and like Ben and the team are like really like doing really well because the average non on-chain crypto participant is looking to deploy crypto and crypto markets, but they're not looking to deploy it into like a 100k shitter. They're looking
Yeah.
to deploy it into like an ecosystem token or like some new stablecoin that has a lot of yield or something like that. Like
Yeah.
the higher institutional level, the corporate end of crypto,
Yeah.
like that market segment is doing very well because again those people were never rugged. Like they were not rugged on, maybe they were rugged on the ICO days, but they haven't been rugged on chain because they never participated on chain, right? So that level of investor is probably doing well, and that's like driving the market forward. Whereas like the vibes for on chain have never felt worse because a lot of people only have exposure to meme coins, and like now that the meme coin meta is essentially dead and you can't hit a 1,000x of a new token anymore, like the sentiment is horrible and a lot of liquidity has been gone through those like huge liquidity extraction events and stuff like that through those cabal launches at the start of the year and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense actually because I, the collective shifts of the world, or those sort of market participants that are looking for upside, they're not interested, or they haven't really figured it out to go on chain and bid the low cap stuff. So that makes a lot of
well
sense. Mm,
yeah, and those guys were taking exposure to like blue chip memes, etc. They just weren't sitting in the trenches like on Photon or whatever, or Axiom, like buying, you know, 100 shitters a day. So
yeah.
like they haven't participated in that sector of the market, and their liquidity has not been drained by that sector. So like that's why the consumer crypto and institutional crypto is doing so well.
Yeah. Yeah. Where would you say, I guess, the because it sounds like you've got a good fundamental understanding of what's currently happening with the fact that the meme coin meta is on its way out. On chain is horrendous. There seems to be a bit of a bid from sort of the consumer end of crypto where people just want to get access to XRPs, the H bars, Cardano's, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. Where do you see potential opportunity for upside now? Like, what are you sort of looking at, or do you think it's done for a while, considering where we're at, and it's no point really taking a closer look at some things?
No, I think the new stuff always emerges out of the old stuff, right? So I think there'll be a pivot back to DeFi and
Yep.
like yield bearing stuff. And like, again, we saw it as an example with IMF with MemeFi. Again, that obviously the platform had that, whatchamacallit, the liquidation cascade or
Yes.
whatever. But like,
Yep.
there's inherent risk with those things as well. But like, those kind of applications, like protocols, will be like the stuff that people are interested in because it's going to like do things with blue chip memes in the ecosystem and allow them to make money off that in another way.
Yep.
And then also the treasury companies and stuff will be another meta. Like it'll all be stuff that's like, yeah, I mean, it is risky, but it will be way less risky than, you know, the guy in your group chat, you know, bundling 50% of a low cap shitter and then sending it into the chat and then nuking it the next day, like all
Yeah.
that day, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a different level of stuff. So it's a way to make money off existing blue chip stuff, or you know, make money off companies that are holding big bags of the majors and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that what you're personally looking at, or is that like more of a just a quick glance at where you see the next opportunities?
Well, I think that's the next opportunities, and what also I'm trying to look into. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't, there's not a lot of that stuff that currently exists, and crypto Twitter is not necessarily big on it. Like, I have to really go through basically all of my following and mute anyone who's not talking about that stuff, or just make a list and find out who is. Because
Yeah.
again, I haven't really seen that conversation happen much. But because this is the same thing of like in the NFT days, there was people saying like, I mean, they're still saying it, that like NFT season is coming. Like, just wait till NFT season is coming. And those guys have been saying that since 2022,
Yeah.
right? And it's nearly 2026, right? Or like it's more than halfway through 2025. There's people who are so indoctrinated with memes being the only aspect of crypto that they will always keep talking about memes. And right now, that's most of CT, but most of CT is wrong.
Yeah.
And most of CT has no money. So you
Yeah.
can't listen to them. So you have to go, okay, what is the untapped frontier? Like, again, I thought like streamer tokens, again, I didn't think that people would watch these streams because they're not that entertaining and like there's not enough participants in crypto. But I thought that they would get more of a run because it's like a narrative and it's a different kind of meta that is like a little bit different to meme tokens and stuff like that. But like they didn't catch bids. Um, but yeah, more stuff akin to that, which is like not specifically memes, because memes aren't interesting. Like
Yeah.
there's no new interesting memes. And like before, like memes would be funny and they would get bid and they would go up, but like that all just got artificially removed, and now like only, you know, cabal stuff can really run. And like, yeah, there's just no such concept of community anymore, and the whole time is so low that like people just can't see the writing on the walls for memes. Like it's like trying to fight the next war with the old war's technology. You need to be looking at like what is the strategy for the next conflict,
Yeah.
and like and learning that now so that when it emerges you are already knee deep in all those investments.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, I understand what you mean there. I like the fact that you pointed out that, most of CT is wrong and most of CT has no money. Do you think the availability of protocols that exist for new innovation is a good sign that that will create opportunity for those assets? So, like for example, IMF, um, that I know of, is the only protocol that is doing borrow and lending on
So
Volvo.
far,
Yeah, so far for borrow and lending for memes. Do you think the fact that it's performed so well was because it was A, just launched a working product, and then B, it was like one of the only things that you could bid for that particular idea?
yeah, it's a whole other vertical, right?
Yeah,
It allows you to then, again, I've never used the platform, but like, you know, you can take existing assets and then do other stuff with them, which
yeah,
is a huge thing. Like people want to do that. Like they don't just want to buy and sell. They want to. That's the same thing with NFTs. Like there was a big run on like staking NFTs for token and yield and stuff like that, and other like points accrual and things like that. So it's like, okay, cool. I have the asset, still own it. I can still sell it when I want it, but then I can go and take a loan against it and do all this other bullshit and stuff like that. So like that is super in demand and undercated for in the industry right now.
Yeah, yeah. It makes a lot of sense as well. Like I was a long time holder of IMF. Um, I was like buying in I think like when the token came out in 2024, and
Mm-hmm.
watched literally like all the other memes outperform. And my like I bought into the version one idea and then spoke with Gami who built out the version two, and I was like, oh, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. They've like removed 60 lines of code. They're putting it on Morpho instead of trying to build their own backend. Um, and I kind of watched that period of time where like IMF went down and sideways for like a lot of the time that all the strong blue chip meme coins like perform really well. So
Yeah,
there was this
negative
idea,
80% of TGE. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was like there was this idea that like I was just like looking at this like, oh my god, if I like mid curve this, if I like thought too far ahead, like who wants to bid the tooling of memes? But yeah, once they did get it working, and then they went live with Mog as the as like the launch partner. Yeah, I didn't expect it to have the run that it did, but it's nice to kind of hear it back from you talk about the idea that things from previous verticals or previous narratives can sort of win out from that and then make up the new vertical or something of interest that's worth bidding. Um,
Yeah, and IMF is a great idea, but it was executed too early,
yeah,
right? So, and then it became a great idea again because it was like soft relaunched at the right time
yeah,
with the Ethereum whales that were able to take ostensibly, like I know a couple of guys that took a couple of percent holding in IMF.
yeah, nice.
um, and really, I should have, being in these group chats and knowing these guys and knowing the Mog team and stuff, I should have been listening to those conversations and done the same. But
Yeah,
I did not. But I'm happy for the success of it because it again, because it's built by Australians, which I really like to see the success of that happen,
yeah,
and also because it points to an appetite for that kind of thing in the industry,
yeah,
which is a much more interesting product for me personally to be involved with, either from the building side or from the investment side
yeah,
and from the tech perspective as well, looking into the back end and seeing what's there. And also because I think that it is a new narrative and a new runner that just hasn't been done yet. Like there'll be tons more DeFi stuff coming out. And again, the average CT retard cannot participate in that because they're too stupid. So it'll pivot back to being more of a it'll level a lot of the playing field again, I think. And that happened with NFTs as well. A lot of stupid people made a lot of money and then donated it back to the smart people.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also like the fact that you kind of summarized the fact that it was the appetite for something new and on chain, because IMF wasn't listed anywhere that you could buy it, and the liquidity was shocking to like get in and out with actual size. Um, so I like the fact that you kind of signaled it, the fact that because it went up a lot and people had an appetite for this thing, that there was always this chance that on chain isn't completely dead, and maybe we're at the tail end of all the stupid people, I guess, not bidding the right stuff, and then yeah, the
Yeah.
good stuff with value, with interest and innovation gets bought up by people that actually want to be on chain and not buy stupid things. So
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's cyclical, but again, I think that the industry keeps getting more complex and removing friction. So like, you just can't go back to just like launching a meme coin and expecting it to run because that's fundamentally not interesting. So it needs to have layers of complexity. And this happened at the end of NFTs as well. Like they needed to get more complex and do more complex things before people would bid, because just a PFP was not interesting.
yeah,
So the same thing will happen now because now it's like people will probably bid meme coins that are in all of these kind of meme-fi protocols and stuff because they have more inherent chance of getting the value pushed up by those protocols, etc. And also it's some level of more interest in that your coin can then access to be used on this platform for X things, which makes that coin more of a utility token as opposed to just a movement.
yeah,
But I mean, Murad has not been incorrect in saying just buy and hold the Colts as well.
yeah,
So there is always exceptions to the rule. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I remember him. I was in like the IMF Telegram chat when he like commented on an IMF, And I was like, just thinking to myself, I was like, is this guy going to full port his like $40 million of SBX, I should say, into like IMF? Is he just going to like proper degen loop this thing to new all-time highs? But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's some sort of evolution there. I was going to touch on this. I think the way that you've framed a lot of these, like investment thesis, trade ideas, but also understanding of like different market participants. Did you learn this as you got into crypto, or were you kind of like this switched on prior to getting into crypto?
I just learned by doing
Yeah,
and learned by exposure.
yeah,
I didn't have any financial background or anything.
yeah,
I was always pretty terrible with money um, prior to this, but I don't like I don't really enjoy participating in the economy. Like I just always thought jobs were bullshit. So like I
yeah,
never saved and never had any money, and I couldn't like I would have a corporate job and be like, fuck this. After 6 months, I'm out of here.
yeah,
Like let me go. I want to go live on an Indonesian island for 1 year, and then I'll work it out. And I just kept doing that for like most of my adult life, um, because I just think like that's a much better way to live. But then with crypto, like enabled me to, become somewhat of a finance person in an alternate kind of finance, area, but still with the flexibility to do all of those things and to be able to put into practice some of the stuff that I've been thinking about and like the trends and narrative and stuff like that, like analysis of without having to, try and break through the walled garden of like traditional finance and stuff. Not that I would have anyway, because wouldn't have been able to work there because I couldn't work at a workplace more than 6 months
yeah,
basically because I hate going to the office.
yeah.
So yeah.
That's crazy that you call it like finance, like, because I feel like everything you kind of touched on has elements of like a whole bunch of stuff. Like, um, yeah, I feel like even someone in finance would probably not grasp a lot of the concepts that you've kind of highlighted when it comes to understanding the dynamics of CT narratives. Identifying opportunities outside of themes that have already kind of existed. So I think that's a
Well,
great
it's
pivot. Yeah, you go.
psychology.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's largely psychology. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Did you know that Sticks? He's probably another trader that I really like admire for his work ethic, because I feel like he is so good at, similar to you, like identifying this stuff really early, and being able to like bid with size and manage to capture the the best upside of that sort of stuff. Um, yeah. Pivoting to my questions around NEET, and you kind of touched on it there
Hmm.
before with not working. If you had to explain to someone what a NEET is, what would that be?
I mean, what the normal term is not in education, employment, or training, right? Like, but I mean, a crypto need is more of like people that reject the system, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's hard to justify going into the office to earn 90K AUD or something like that, maybe 120, right? Let's just call it that range. Most people make that within that range, right?
yeah,
When to give up your entire year for that pay packet when you can make that on one trade,
yeah,
and and then also have like maybe you make it, you're not going to make it like on day one of the year, but maybe you make it halfway through the year or something like that. So like it's very hard to justify trying to seek out a normal salary when you can obviously make a yearly salary. This is just conservative, right? You can easily make a yearly salary trading.
mm,
It might be 10K wins or something like that, so you
yeah,
can make that in that manner. Or you can then build out your social presence on Twitter and then get like advisory roles and things like that, and get recurring revenue monthly for that, or go in and help someone with their a G to M and strategic marketing based on understanding, CT,
yeah,
or even help people with like like feedback and product design and stuff like that based on your understanding of like what consumers in the industry want. So like, yeah, I mean, you can definitely do both.
yeah,
Um, I don't like, I'm not a guy that had a 10-year career in field X and therefore that's my identity.
yeah,
So therefore for me, it is much more interesting to participate in this emerging field, which levels the playing field in terms of access. Um, and is much more fast paced and interesting, which also, like, I like to do stuff like most of the day, like 16 hours a day, like
Yeah.
just be plugged in for dopamine and things like that. So that it really aligns more. Like, I never got people like 9 to 5ing and then like just sitting down and watching Netflix. Like, I think that's just like a slow decay, like just rotting
Yeah.
away. I always thought those people were retarded, but you can be a good kind of retarded in crypto Twitter. But yeah, like it's hard to say. Like, I'm not trying to shit on the concept of work, because I think if you have an interesting career, you should stick to it, because it gives people a sense of purpose, and like, being entertained and interested in what you're doing is a good thing. But if you're like the average wagey who hates their job,
Yeah.
like, and you do have somewhat of exposure to crypto, I'm not saying quit that job, but if it's taking all of your time, you have to ask the question of like, is the time spent on that job affecting your ability to equal that amount of money via greater participation in the market, right?
Yeah.
And again, you need to have runway to be able to do that. There's a luxury that's involved with that. So like, if you don't have the cash, you can't do that. But might it be better to pursue a job that is less demanding of your time, because understanding that all jobs relatively pay most very similar money, and so pick the one that demands the least of your time, which gives you the best ability to participate in the market. It gives you most time to participate in the market, because that, to me, is the win-win. Like, you get a base income, but also liquidity to deploy into the market and time to look at the market to do stuff. And
Yeah.
the end goal of that is not having to work, because you're able to out trade a yearly salary, or trade a yearly salary at the minimum. Yeah, that's kind of how I see like what a crypto NEET is. Not the guy with $10 in his portfolio who's unemployed because he's a retard.
Yeah. I like the way that you touched on like the average wagey weighing up their time spent on their job versus if they were to reduce that time and put that time into crypto plus their current liquidity size and to be able to make returns, would that be a better use of their time? Because I think a lot of
Yeah,
people,
well,
yeah,
the best capitalists are the ones that are able to earn the most for the least amount of effort,
yeah,
right? And that should be how you should look at all things, crypto and work.
yeah, that's a good point. When did you specifically realize that you weren't going to go back to a job?
When I made money,
Yeah,
like, so I mean, to be clear, like, I have worked in the space. Like, I worked with an NFT launch studio and like on a lot of NFT projects and thing in the past, and then did like marketing work for a bunch of like protocols and stuff in the industry as well.
yeah,
Um, but like, those would just be like, I mean, some of them were full time, but most of them were just gigs, and I would stack gigs on gigs and then like use that to build liquidity to then bid stuff.
yeah,
Um, but like, it's more of the fact that like, I don't have to. Like, I'm not like people are going to have different interpretations of what that need is. But for me, the need, I always lived very frugally, and I just don't care. Like, I'm not looking at this of like, I need to make money to retire, because like, who knows where the world's going to be in like 5 years, let alone like, 30, 40 years.
yeah,
So like, the time horizon for me is like, there's like, it's just like I'm less stressed about that. So I'm like, all right, cool. I made a year's salary. There is no need to work that year, right? Like, versus like, I made a year's salary, I'm also going to work, so that now I have 2 years salary. I'm like, well, it's up to you. Like, at the end of the day, do what you want to do. But like, for me, I enjoy like waking up when I want to wake up and going to bed when I want to wake up, and being able to go take a 6-month holiday whenever I want and stuff like that. And so
yeah,
yeah, that the freedom is more important to me. I really don't like this concept of going into an office. But then again, if I had an interesting crypto job, it would be different, because it would be combining passion with time spent in the office. I'm more talking about like, the average wagey, like kind of dull fucking bullshit job, and talking to like someone around the water cooler about the latest program they saw on TV and how amazing is fucking Game of Thrones, and wow, Pedro Pascal he's touching women. Like, it's like, you vapid idiots. Like, I cannot spend every day of most of my life with that class of people who is
yeah,
just a drone. Like, they're mole people. And like, that's why, like, if you work for a startup or something, great. You work in like the high end of tech, amazing. If you
Yep.
work with like super competent people in like an interesting field, that's amazing. But that's not most people. Most people work with very dull, boring people. And no matter how nice those people are, like, do you want to spend the rest of your life, like the majority of your life, with that cohort of people just so
Yeah.
you can pay money to then have your children in daycare and after school care, and then maybe take 1-2 week holiday to Bali every year? Like, I just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that you can't get ahead, right? Like, your salary, the salaries are never going to increase enough to be able to give you a luxurious lifestyle. It's just going to be enough to maintain, and in fact, probably slightly go backwards
Yeah.
with inflation and how the economy is going, especially in Australia. And you can't ever access things like housing, etc. So if you know that you can't beat the system or even improve your lot in the system, it actually makes a lot of sense to kind of just not bother, or like try the least, because
Yeah.
trying the least will give you the most free time and probably a comparable income, um, to be honest. Whereas crypto, the more effort that you put into it, you can make a lot more money. You can out earn these people by orders of magnitude by virtue of, it being a financial market, or like an asset market where assets can accrue value and you actually have a chance of doing this stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, think of it over a 10-year time horizon. At your corporate gig, maybe you're making 100K a year. Over the course of 10 years, where do you expect that salary to be at the end? Now, if you play your cards really right and end up in senior management, let's say maybe it's 220K,
Yeah.
200K, something like that, maybe 180. Maybe that's not even 10 years. 10 years is probably too little. That's more of a 15-year time frame, right? But do you think that you could make the same amount of money in a decade in crypto? Like, $1.8 million in a decade, right? Like, in the same industry for a lot less time commitment and stuff like that. And if the answer is yes, then you should just do crypto. If the answer is no, then you should just work. If the answer is maybe, you should probably try and do both.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think of it like that either, to be honest. I think that's really incredible the way that you've summarized that. So you're saying
Well,
10 years, yeah.
it's time. It's about time.
Yeah.
And again, that logic, the logic that I use then is taking into account the fact that that person is promoted year on year or every couple of years, or is getting a salary increase every couple of years. Most people will not. Most people top out their earning potential in Australia, even in white collar services, at like 120K, right? Most people employed by the government, that's like an upper threshold for the government payment. So 120K over 10 years, is $1.2 million, and you know that you're not going to get any more than that. You don't necessarily ever have a large, well, actually, you do not have any liquidity windfall in that 10-year period. You can only DCA into the market over time, because that's how your pay works.
Yeah.
So you actually can't compound as much interest, really, because you don't have as much free capital.
Yeah.
So you're limited in actually, at the end of that period, in having a fat liquidity stack. Whereas if you work in crypto, you might have a year where you make 300 grand, 500 grand, and then next year you make zero. But
Yeah.
you got ahead because you got a greater stack of liquidity earlier along that journey, which you were then able to compound into greater liquidity, into more money. Even by putting it into the bank, you will out earn um, wages, right? Because of the fact that you have more at the start that's compounding over a longer period of time than they're less.
Wow. Yeah, I can't believe I've never really thought of it like that, man. Yeah. It's so true though,
But like,
because yeah,
I'm just like, what would be the average savings of a wage per year? Like,
it's
you earn
nothing.
120K,
It's nothing, man,
you
because
pay
the
40
cost of
grand,
living's so high.
35,000 rent. Yeah, 35K in rent. All right, that drops you down to 90. I don't know what you paid before tax, because it's PYG, so you can't even allocate the funds, right? It's not like a business. So like, maybe you got 80K after tax, and then you paid 35K on rent, so you were left with 45K. You spent probably 20K on food, because that's you getting Uber Eats because you're so busy, and you're left with 20 grand, not including bills. So maybe you pull out 15 grand if you're pretty, maybe you could pull out 20 grand if you're super frugal per
Yeah.
year off 120K, which is ridiculous. And in 10 years, you have 200 grand saved, or whatever that compounds to, like 250, 270 or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
from earning $1.2 million. like it's like, and if you made 270 in crypto and just chucked in the bank now, you're ahead of that person's 10-year journey.
That's a 10x. It's like what the fuck? That's
It's
that's like not actually unachievable in a 6 month time period.
Yeah, you should earn that. If you earn that money, and like if you earn that bags in crypto and just threw it in the bank in a high interest savings account, and then literally went on the dole, in 10 years time you would still be ahead of the person who spent 10 years in the office. And they can't see it in that way because they don't understand how money is made, because they don't make money. They're rewarded for time. Like they're not really earning, right? So that 20K per year that they save, they're sitting back in this fucking restaurant, drinking a fancy wine, eating a meal, and they're like looking outside, and you're like, you're busking on the side of the street for $10, right? You still got that fucking fat liquidity stack in the bank, and you're on the dole, so you don't have to do anything. So it's like this is such a weird way of looking at it. But like, I think if people start to think like that, the system will break down, and most people's brains can't compute that that's actually a path. Like there is an alternative path to success that doesn't involve wage cucking, because wage cucking is a rigged game. It's like it's legitimately retarded.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I feel so like I can't believe I've never thought of it like that. I feel like I get to a point where I trust my own judgment on a lot of things, but I've never like considered thinking of it like that. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
wow.
you don't need much money to have a good lifestyle as well. Like it's just like people have huge lifestyle creep, and like, yeah, like I mean you do in Australia because it's so expensive, but like again, I'm throwing out some like very controversial and like alternate theories of existence and stuff like that. But uh, you know, with crypto, it enables you to take a lot of your financial freedom into your own hands, and then earn enough liquidity to go and do interesting things, or make more, I guess, investments ahead of time of your peers, because of the fact that you're able to unlock a large amount of capital in one go, whereas they can never do that because the system does not allow them to, right? And then you just have to extrapolate that over time to see which is more beneficial. But you still fundamentally have to earn the money in crypto first before you can say that, right? But
Yeah,
then again, tons of retards in crypto did a $500,000 trade, right? And then they should look at that as not the $500,000 trade, but like 20, no, not even, yeah, 20 years of compounded savings, right? Like something like that, yeah.
yeah, wow. It's so true though the way that you framed it. It's like the system doesn't allow for them to have a massive lump sum to compound when they're working their job, whereas
Yeah.
crypto can allow
So
you
why
to
would
do
you
that.
bother working for companies that why would you bother working for companies that you don't have equity in either? Why would you build somebody else's business? This is also like a big thing that I'm annoyed at. Whereas like Nvidia, I think I read some stat like 76% of all Nvidia's uh, employees are millionaires because they had the stock options and stuff like that. So like, equity or stocks in company is a greater incentive to build and to be part of the wage cuckery system, because you can actually make a huge financial windfall, whereas just working for money is retarded.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy. I never thought of it like that. Um, yeah, wow.
Unless you're building a business, obviously that's a separate channel.
Yeah. So other than washing your car, I guess like, how do you find spending your time being a NEET? Yeah, what makes up your day?
I spend like I probably I don't wake up super early, but I wake up like about 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
Um, and then I probably spend the first couple of hours just like reading everything that went on overnight,
yeah,
GCs and the market and stuff like that, and then like chasing up conversations that I had with people, and then like looking at like what I'm holding and stuff like that, and then like from then on, I am like trying to craft like a few tweets and things like that, or ideas of tweets, which takes like a little while because I'm trying to write longer form stuff and things like that.
yeah,
And so that will probably take half a day. And then um, before I was injured, I have Achilles injury. I would usually like spend a lot of time at the gym, like just go and work out, and then
yeah.
we go for a drive and chill out, and then like yeah, go to cafes and occasionally catch up with friends if they're not working and stuff like that in the day. And yeah,
Yeah.
just generally like kind of like just chill about, and then like I'll do like that first sprint, I guess, and then kind of chill, and then like I mean probably later on tonight again I'll do a second sprint from like 8 to 11,
Yeah.
where I catch up with the EU crowd and have a look at what's going on and stuff like that. So like I kind of split my day into like two segments of work
Yeah.
with a middle of relaxation and stuff. And I do stuff like language study and things. And I was thinking about like going and doing a useless university degree, not because I think it would pay for any money, but just like I think it'd be interesting to like just like study again and like and just like for pleasure, not for an economic gain and
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember, I think it was Shay talking about this like years ago, where he was like, kind of bored. I might just go back to uni and like get a PhD in something, or maybe it was CL on the timeline talking about getting a PhD in something just for the fun of it. So
Yeah, it's possible. I got a master's, so like, which I did by dissertation, so
yeah,
I could do a PhD, but it's time consuming. Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I like the fact that you split your day up to be able to monitor different like time zones for information flow as well. I think Australia has one of the worst, like, for literally anything, man. Like, the worst time zone to catch up on all the like the relevant stuff that's happening.
Yeah, it's the worst. And again, I am based in Asia a couple of months every year,
Yeah,
sometimes 6 months,
yeah,
which is even worse. So, uh, yeah, you just have to be okay with permanently being on and like splitting that day up, which a lot of people don't get. And like, all the people that are like frustrated with me that I'm like not paying attention to them, but I'm like, no, look, this is my day. Like it's a split day.
yeah,
like if you meet me in the middle of the day, I can give you undivided attention, but I can't, um, because you know this is a 24/7 industry, and like I'll specifically be on 6 days of every week, and I just take one day off.
yeah,
Really, um, I think that's even still I have trouble taking one day off because if you miss something, you miss it big. But now, like these kind of market conditions, you can. But yeah, each to their own. People have their own ways of working. Some people I know who are super successful, like don't bother checking in daily at all. They just take a trade and then walk away for 2 weeks and come back and have a look at it. And that can be more successful as well because
yeah,
you don't feel the compulsion to like keep clicking buttons and stuff like that.
yeah. It definitely sounds like the underlying there is having like a very disciplined structure around what you do. And I think if you're able to take one day off, that's pretty well done because I think it's actually quite hard to detach from your phone and all the information that you can kind of absorb, like you said, from different chats, the timeline, and all the other bits and pieces as well.
Well, it's Twitter. Twitter is the hard thing to disengage from. I'm not like a KOL or anything, but I have like a decent following, and like that requires me to reply to the people that I who post like who comment on my stuff, and then like think about what I'm going to write, and sometimes post a couple of tweets a day, sometimes like one, but those have to be written and they have to track well and trend well, and like that's a much more consuming process
Yeah,
than if you don't bother with the social media layer of crypto. You probably will have more time to yourself, and there's less pressure because you don't need to check in as often.
yeah,
Um, so that's the downside. Like that's the most, and there's tons of KOLs that care way more about getting followers and getting engagement on the timeline than their trades that they're making, even though they're making good money on trades. You can see it. Like they'll blow up a portfolio or hold a position down to nothing because of clout, right? So it's a dangerous thing as well.
yeah,
Um, Whereas a lot of whales don't even bother with Twitter at all. They're like, why? What's the point? Like, I'm just going to take my trades.
yeah, yeah. You talked on something there called the social media layer of crypto. How would you interpret that? What is that to you?
Well, it's like the InfoFi people. Like, I know tons of people. Well, I don't know them, but like, I know them on the timeline who never trade. They were like post NFT people who never had NFTs or NFT money, who never traded meme coins, who just built these accounts that farmed followers and engagement from like GMing and engagement farming practices,
Yeah,
who now only do InfoFi or paid promos for stuff, but literally do not have any any on-chain activity whatsoever.
Wow.
Like they actually, and there's tons of these accounts, like heaps of them, and they're quite big. And like, it's like, yeah, they just don't know anything about crypto whatsoever,
Yeah.
and never bothered to, and nor are they like entertaining KOLs. They're just like this bland slop, kind of like, those brand building people are like building a brand. Like, what are you building the brand of? Like, you don't know anything about the industry. You don't trade. You don't participate in any way. Your brand is what? Delivering content on what? Delivering
Yeah.
content on how to make content. Like, that's not a vertical. That's made up. Like, that's more bullshit than crypto,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't like why? Like, why are you here to get like, $500 brand deals every now and then? Like, just go put that time into a career like that. Those people should go and do that, because they're the NPCs of crypto. They're the water cooler people at the office. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, in relation to your personal profile, you talked about, you said you're obviously not a KOL. You have a following. Are you actively managing this in terms of, I guess, trying to achieve in a vertical?
I mean, like, it took me this long to get to 20K followers. Like, I didn't really start trying on Twitter until 2023, properly. But yeah, like, it's been a much slower grind than other people. But there is an advent like, it is advantageous to have a larger following, because people give you more, like, you're able to affect outcomes from people more easily because you have an audience. And so you get treated with a different kind of level of, I wouldn't call it respect, but like, people think that you have some degree of motion, so therefore you tend to not get screwed over as much as the person who has no recourse, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's like almost a safety mechanism in some regard, but also you are able to put stuff out there, and if it resonates with people, then they DM you, and you can get good, like, not job opportunities, but like, advisory roles, or maybe you can get jobs and go work on like building some cool crypto protocol and DApp and stuff like that. Like, so getting those opportunities, or like be part of something and then get a good TGE exit. Um, so like, I think there's a lot of value in building social capital
Yep.
on crypto. Even if that's getting into a coin early because people want you to help them shill it or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, or be like an early holder because you are somewhat, of an interesting person, and you'd be surprised at how often those kind of occurrences happen. So, yeah, like, there's like, the guys like ICO Beast, who came from not really having a following to being like the most influential person in a certain subset of crypto at this point in time, and being able to turn that into probably like $1 million of brand value,
Yeah.
at the upper echelon, to, the mid-tier KOLs who probably can turn that into like six figures,
Yeah.
of brand value. So I think it is worth doing, and it is interesting, and it's interesting having a following in an industry as well, because it's somewhat of a, it shows that you've been not anointed, but like, at least people are validating your opinions and somewhat resonating with what's going on in the ecosystem. And that's always nice to hear from like a dopamine perspective, and like a self-aggrandizing perspective, but then also like to be validated and knowing that you actually might be talking about stuff that is actually happening, which is always interesting.
Yeah. It helps you know that you're on the right track with that sort of large following as well. That you're not putting out absolute garbage and people are commenting on telling you to go kill yourself or anything like that.
Yeah, and you can fake it as well. Like,
Yeah.
people bot their accounts and stuff like that, whereas I have never done anything. I've just only ever posted what I wanted to post, and just like, fuck it, I'll make the meta myself, and if that works, that works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. And you've again coming back to a couple of things. You structured your day so you can allow for that sort of thing and give that attention. But the other thing too was, do you think this ties back into when you talked about trust erosion in the space, that the more that you build out a presence where it is trusted, people value your opinion and want you to be involved in a lot of the things that are going on pre TGE, that will end up being a benefit to you in the long term?
Oh yeah, man. Like, absolutely. Like, I have been invited into working on something or advising something based on having some degree of social capital, or going on a spaces and saying something that resonated with someone,
Yep.
and then that turning into like a significant payday. like,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that was just by virtue of being present. So I think a lot of people mid-curve that aspect of it, where it's like, hey, just put in an extra hour a day on cultivating somewhat of a Twitter brand.
Yeah.
As much as I just shat on brand builders, but I'm talking about, like, people who actually understand crypto. Like, if you understand crypto and put in an extra hour a day or an hour and a half a day for like 1 month on Twitter, specifically focusing on sharing your thoughts or comments on the industry and stuff like that, you will at some point resonate with somebody, and that person will then hit you up and be like, hey, let's have a conversation. And that could lead to actual, like a 6-figure payday or something
Yeah.
like that. Right? It's very, very common that, you get filtered into like the information flow ahead of the pack by virtue of someone building, liking what you're doing, and them needing someone to help them or connect them with people and stuff like that. Or just thinking you have value as like someone who can, like, you know, be the town square of their product.
Yeah. It's also one of those ones where I feel like that is probably one of the best rewarding components of crypto, because I think at a surface level, there's a lot of like scams, value extraction. We were talking about the vibes deteriorating and the meme coins like being over, but from, like you said, being present and spending a little bit more time in the space and connecting with people can definitely end up boosting, yeah, opportunities. Just like whether it's
Well,
opportunities to meet other people, but also upside in a lot of the new stuff that's being built.
you could take, like, this is an idea that I've always had but never done, but
Yeah,
like a couple of people, like 3 of you, could make an account that was a KOL account and actually put 100K of budget towards that account. And then in 1 year's time, or maybe in 1.5 years' time, you would have like a dominant KOL of the industry, and which would be bringing in much more money than that initial spend.
yeah,
Um, because you could have like someone like writing like long form content, you could have a reply guy, you could have someone making video content, like looking at dashboards and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then, like, you would just be able to cover like every time zone and every vertical in crypto, and like be seen as like this all known, all knowing, all seeing kind of person. And then the deals that would come through that would be astronomical. Yeah.
that's actually really insane that you frame it like that, because I almost feel like there's like brands out there that could actually implement that strategy as well, like ones that are
They should.
trying to
They
appeal,
should
like,
consult me.
yeah.
Yeah.
At lowercaseboot on Twitter. Hit him up, hit him up. But yeah, like I see it with like if we take Kraken for example, I see the Kraken account often in very popular tweets on the timeline in the comment section posting certain things, and I'm wondering in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, that's probably an intern that's kind of there to try and make the appeal come across as a little bit more user friendly to a lot of the people on Twitter. But
Mm-hmm.
then if you take your level of it, where you just pump 3 people on the one account, you can like triple the outcome and make the brand much more cemented in different communities within X. But your idea about doing that just to create a KOL out of existence and then do the dashboards or do the long form or the reply guy to get a result like that, that actually sounds like a like not like the worst idea. Providing the three
Oh, it
people,
would it
yeah,
would it would work. It
yeah,
would 100% work. I can tell you from like my personal experience of like just writing long form content,
yeah,
like, and how long that takes, that already works. So like you combine that with other verticals that already are established and work on crypto Twitter, and then you start to become more appealing to a larger audience. But it's just like one person can't do all that. So
yeah,
a team could, and then you gain followers from that. And by gaining followers, you gain influence, and by gaining influence, you gain the access to leverage opportunity and to make more money.
yeah,
So it's again, you'd have to convince people to be able to kick up a lot of budget at the start to basically run a year. Like, it's like a year of runway it's a business. You'd be starting a business, and you, hiring the right people for that job would be very hard, but it would be very, very rewarding.
yeah. Yeah, my, my my good friend Dark, he just messaged me saying, "Shall we create the Power Ranger Megazord of Coles?" In the
Yeah,
DM.
you should just get a whole, like, let's make a DAO and then fund the KOL. But you have to do it. People couldn't know that it was multiple people, because then it would lose its appeal. But if they didn't like know that, like, it would be Actually, I'm not gonna answer the next. I know how to do it easier, but I'll save that for DMs if people
Yeah.
want to inquire.
Yeah,
Hit me up.
save it for the DMs, man. Save it for the DMs. I had a question a little bit more pertaining to your kind of like personal life, a little bit around being a NEET, but obviously not the poor NEET's the one that actually knows what he's doing and how to quantify time, reward, effort, risk, all that jazz. How have you found your personal relationships with people that aren't in crypto or might have jobs or who are generally just different to you? How have you found that has changed over time?
I think that it is hard to relate to people who are in that kind of like wage trap. And then you can get somewhat of a superiority complex and or a bit of a god complex when you hit a big trade
Yeah,
and you have a shitload of money and you're like, hey, everybody's retarded, like look at all these retards and stuff like that. And then, but I think, and honestly, I do think it disconnects you from the average wagey. Um, but you have to kind of weigh it up by saying that the access to capital is decreasing the amount of time that you need to spend in that system. And you can always find people that mesh with people who want to work and live outside the system.
yeah,
You just have to kind of understand that it will remove you from a subset of society because people won't understand what it is and they will fear what they don't understand.
yeah,
Moreover, they'll be jealous of the fact that you have more time and more money than them. Um, yeah, and I think it's also if you weren't in a relationship or something, this is probably not what people talk about because everybody's a fucking incel on Twitter. But if you weren't in a relationship, you might have a hard time convincing like a girl or something that you have a real job, which might affect your like long term prospects of that. So like you have
yeah,
to kind of cater towards going, okay, I'm in a parallel industry, doing off the cuff kind of things. I'm going to have to probably build a segment of friends and family, whatever, that understand that or at least don't have a prejudged notion of that. Because it is a very risk on approach to life that is very play it by ear
yeah,
versus the structured kind of like white picket fence, which is not even a feasible goal anymore, kind of like layout of what people want to be doing and what box they want to put you in. So, or you just lie and tell them that you do something else.
yeah,
Like that's probably more of an easier value prop because again, nobody really cares what you do.
yeah.
Like you say you're marketing or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my new one's going to be I work on a three-man team for a KOL account that we've created out of thin air. That's what I'm going to run
Yeah, I
with.
mean, you could tell people that they have no idea even what KOL means, but like, yeah.
They're like, get the fuck away from
But I
me.
think the more insidious part is like just seeing people as like peasants and stuff like that, which
Yeah,
can occur. Like, but like you just have to be like, man, like money is stupid. It's all bullshit. Like people are people. We should treat them with some degree of respect. Like,
yeah. It's like you said as well, right? Like when you were talking about the sort of 10-year time horizon from someone who works at wagey but also is in crypto. You said that some years you won't be earning anything, and some years you'll make big bucks as well. And so it's not always going to be that environment where you're going to have that god complex or superiority complex. And yeah, I guess it's not always going to feel like you are above normal people that don't do that sort of thing, and also the fact that you touched on building friends and family within the area of, I don't want to say life, but like in the area of crypto makes a lot of sense as well because it ties back to that old commentary around you want to build friends in the industry or like get a bunch of friends together and build a group chat and be together because that's how you like learn and grow together. But I think you touched on a like at a higher level where it's like you actually will relate less to people from your normal life, and that's why it's really important to build strong connections within the industry that you're looking to go into, like crypto, if you're looking to do that full time or dedicate your life to that, because it is different from
yeah, yeah,
normal life. Yeah,
yeah, and like again, there's different degrees of like what that looks like. I think people who already have like worked a traditional career and had like a whole cohort of like friends from that area already, probably you probably don't lose those people.
yeah,
It's more about like having to build new relationships and stuff, which can be affected by you essentially being a contrarian.
Yeah.
And I think that is pushing you towards more crypto specific people who work in this area who understand this stuff because they're also contrarians. So like I think of it more of like that, because like it is kind of weird to like not work and to just trade. Like people think that they have to think that you make no money, because if you make more money than they do doing that, then they are the retard, right? So therefore you can only be less successful than them, because otherwise it would break their brain and they would have wasted their life
Yeah.
essentially, or some of their youth. So that's their very normie perspective of it, but a contrarian would see it as a rejection of the system, and therefore that's a very cool thing to be doing. So like I think it's more about like what sort of person it is versus like the industry.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I sort of like laughed because you said, "Oh, you don't really lose those people um, that are from like the 9 to 5 sort of life." And then I was like thinking to myself, "Well, where they're gonna go anyway, right? Like that's what they're gonna kind
Yeah,
of be
nowhere.
doing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you can lose the ability to relate to them, because it's like, I was like talking to a friend and they were like, I wrote a tweet about it. They're like fucking making 69K AUD a year
Yeah.
and like looking at getting like a mortgage to like buy an apartment. And this is this chick I know, and she has like 2 kids. And like, I was like, they're going to buy a 2-bedroom apartment on a mortgage on like, sub 70K AUD a year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you going to sleep on a mattress for the rest of your life? Because your kids are going to have 2 rooms. And like, it's like, oh yeah. I'm like, it's just like, you're like, oh man, I just bought a brand new car. like, and this person who's like, you know what I mean? Like earning like fucking peanuts, and like you're planning a holiday overseas, and you may or may not fly business class depending on the mood and stuff like that. Like you have choice and you have liquidity and capital to waste if you want to.
Yeah.
And the average person's experience is not that. So it kind of pushes you up an echelon, which can make you somewhat of a snob towards the normal everyday realities of people. But I think it's more of a frustration to be like why are they bothering? Like how can they not see the answer to these questions? But probably they haven't asked the questions in the first place.
Yeah. I also have a theory that I think if everyone tried to, you know, stop working and trade crypto full time, I'm not sure if I'd want to be a part of that sort of future. So there is an element of like, I feel like the people that are sticking it out under some really tough financial conditions and are in a position that are providing value back to society, whether it's like a teacher or a nurse or something that actually provides a public service, so that the rest of like
Yeah, those people.
yeah,
Yeah.
that it's like it's like I kind of wish that they are hopefully doing okay enough to continue doing that because yeah, I think everyone transitioning to to trading on chain may not yeah work out.
Yeah, I'm not like advocating for that to
Yeah,
occur. I'm just saying like that most jobs are fundamentally do nothing,
yeah,
right? So like if you have a do nothing job, like that, it's like productivity is a fake metric, right? Are
yeah,
you productive because you took 3 Zoom calls in a day and then wrote up a balance sheet for next month's marketing budget?
yeah,
Like, is that productivity, or is that not real?
yeah,
Or like, are you fielding inquiries? Sorry, I can't say inquiries on behalf of like the government to generate stats to present to your boss to then present to a minister to then show productivity. Like, is that are those real vocations? Because like most jobs are bullshit jobs.
yeah,
Most of the economy is fake. Crypto is the ultimate representation of the fake economy. It's just out in the open. Would not the average participant in the fake economy on the other end, that is asymmetrically weighted against them, not be better off taking some exposure to the the fake economy that is weighted towards them
yeah,
asymmetrically, which is crypto? Not saying a doctor or a nurse or a police officer should quit their job because all jobs are bullshit. It's
yeah,
just that most jobs are bullshit, and like there is an alternative I guess, weird world out there where you can empower yourself through this. And I would be kind of bullish if everybody did that, because the market cap of crypto would fucking exponentially go up, and then there would be tons more jobs created in the crypto industry. Whereas, like, well, the job statistics in Australia, like 54,000 new jobs in the private sector were created in 2024, which of a country of 27 million, with probably a working population of 15 million, is not even enough to cover the new graduates from university at a factor of, it's less than 50% of the new graduates or something. I think it's like 100,000 university graduates every year.
Oh, that's
So it's like, if 50% of them could not work on the private sector because the jobs wouldn't exist unless people quit, which is probably such a low metric. And then there's also contraction of the private sector, right? Whereas the government is exponentially increasing, 85% increase in employment in the government in 2024. So the government is eating up the capacity shortfall. So, like, you go to university to work in the government, you have a 50-50 chance of working in the government or private sector. Right? And that's not your choice. Like, that's the economy. There's a 50-50 chance you end up in the private sector or the government, but there's also a chance you end up unemployed, right? So there'd be 25% chance government, 25% chance private sector, 50% chance no job. And that's dire. And that's why I'm saying, like, crypto makes a lot of sense to people in that position. You got to pay back 30,000 in hex. Why don't you just roll the hex into Bitcoin, right? Like, and then go work at McDonald's.
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that from that perspective. Man, I'm so out of touch with Australian statistics. But I did know that the government was one of the largest employers, which isn't a great sign of a strong economy. I just didn't think of it in
It is
terms
not.
of statistics around if you graduate. It's like, that's the roll of the dice. It's like 50% chance you're not finding a job, 25%
Yeah.
chance you're working for the government, and another 25% chance you're working for the private sector. So if we take back your analogy around, that 10-year time horizon around your, like, earning capacity, 25% of that is already
Government.
capped at the government,
Yeah.
and
Correct.
50% of it's gone. You don't actually have that.
It's
And,
$0.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
25% is, like, if you manage to get in the right industry with the right upside and it doesn't collapse in the next 4 years, like, yeah, that's where you could go. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You have to end up in the top 10% of employees in the private sector that are able to progress their careers. So, like, the statistic is so, like, ridiculously low. Even if, think about it this way, if you're a doctor and you become a general practitioners make like 110 grand a year, and then I think the salary caps out at like 140,
yeah,
and that's it. So a doctor, like, is limited to a cap of $1.4 million on the average end, right? And also paying back a huge lump sum of hex, right? So, like, someone who made 7 figures in crypto has outrun 10 years of a doctor's life already. Well, I mean, we already did the math before. It's like they'll still end up with like 200, 300 grand at the end of that, right? Maximum. It's like, if you earn 7 figures, you've done 30 years of a doctor's potential earnings. And that's a fucking doctor. Like, they're like the smartest of the smart
that makes me feel sick.
in the system.
That
Yeah, it's
actually
fucked.
makes
It's
me feel
absolutely
sick.
fucked.
Oh my god!
And
See,
that's not including inflation in the mix, right? Like, already. Yeah.
this is what you spend your free time on. This is the in between the two working blocks that you have during the day. You're
Well,
just like, let me see
so,
the statistics.
so, like, and this is going to be like a real fucking pretentious gay thing to say, but, like,
Yeah,
back in, like, in the French Revolution, like before the French Revolution, there were these guys, like, not necessarily Voltaire and stuff, because that's like more like poets and literary guys, but there were these guys who were like professional, not intelligentsia because that's a communist term, but like, they would go to cafes and just like read books and like discuss ideas
yeah,
and like try and solve problems. And that led to the unwinding of the Ancien regime in France, and like all of the, the pushing of the Republican ideas of the revolution, and then like leading to like the modern nation state under the Napoleonic Code and stuff like that. And like, those guys got that way because they had ample free time to think and to study and to discuss. Whereas, just 50 years later in the Industrial Revolution, a lot of that stuff was wound back because people were basically cogs in a machine and didn't have time to educate themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And that is essentially somewhat is what going on now, in that like people are not thinking about the broader ideas because it's more it's very confronting to think about that stuff. But moreover, a lot of people don't have the time or the energy to do that and to discuss it, or it's very taboo to kind of discuss that stuff. So therefore, no one's looking at actually the realities of these situations. Like you might tell your family in Australia that you bought a property and everybody's like, oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. Congratulations. But it's like you took on $800,000 of debt to access the property market to be a permanent serf to the bank because you have to pay them back. And it's completely dependent on you keeping that career for the
Yeah.
rest of your life, 30 years, right? To pay it all back just to have the privilege of having a fully owned piece of land that you live on, right? That's essentially like the surf economy. Like you're indentured to that piece of land, like which is owned by the bank, which is the equivalency of a lord, right? And people will say they will let people make that rash financial decision in a day and think that it's a fantastic move, or people will have like multiple children and people they'll congratulate them on that, not understanding that that's a multi-million dollar commitment in and of itself as well.
Yeah.
So like there's all this stuff that people do because there's a certain tick sheet of society that says that it's smart to do, but in reality it's completely irrational and financially irresponsible to be doing this stuff. Again, like I'll give leeway for children because that's a separate biological kind of push for things, but like you don't necessarily need to be, you know, in near seven figures of debt to access a property, but Australians push the narrative that that is somewhat of a sense of achievement despite being nearly seven figures in debt. Like it's ridiculous. No one's sitting down and critically analyzing this stuff. Moreover, not to go too far into it, but like the great wealth transfer of boomers dying off in the future is like everybody thinks they're going to get rich from that, but like that's like an NFT marketplace where like suddenly millions of illiquid assets are on the market at a huge price and they can't be sold because there's no buyers. So you have to constantly undercut the floors. So like today's property pricing tomorrow when it's inherited would not be nearly as much because of the dollar devaluation of inflation over time. And then also the fact that there'll be a huge offset, a huge bank of people wanting to sell property on the open market with a lack of buyers
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. I've always thought that maybe more specific to Australia, and I might have this wrong, but a lot of the data around the accurate reporting of housing sales or home prices is always like fluffed in a way to not kind of break that trend of, property prices
Up
always
only.
go up. I don't know if this
Yeah.
is true, so hopefully I don't get quoted on this, but I think like 70% of the marketing or media or website information that publishes home sales or new housing sales and stuff like that on like realestate.com.au is like 70% owned by like one entity. And so I kind of got into this around COVID. Do you know Martin North?
I know the name. Is it the journalist?
Yeah, it's the journalist guy that
No?
decided to go full anti markets. Like in 2020, he like posted all this data around housing and stuff like that, and I think there were a few people on there that were talking about the fact that like I don't know how this works in terms of housing terms, but they were saying that like the clearance rates of homes, if they were sold at a loss, they weren't published in particular reports to sort of like not give people the scare that housing prices don't always go up. I'm not sure if that's changed. This was years ago, but I'm always of the belief that like there's never enough accurate data to actually make people make the most informed decision. So I always advocated for like a not a public, not a privately owned registry, but like a publicly owned registry of information where you could actually see all of the accurate data around housing to at least make
Well,
your
people
buyers
don't
more
even look at that
informed.
data though.
Yeah, I know. I
like,
know. They,
like
I'm probably just. It's a stretch. Yeah.
ask people the question as to why they bought their home, and they'd just be like, "Well, we wanted to." Like, it's an emotional purchase, and like, I get it. Like, it is cool to own. I mean, I don't own a home, so that's why I'm shitting on it. But like, if I owned a home outright, I would have probably a different perspective of it because it's a huge Ponzi. But like,
Yeah.
I think that when you're trying to make a when you're trying to put a roof over your head from an emotional perspective and a safety perspective, but then in doing so become a serf to the bank, right? Basically indentured, servant who has to pay that off for the rest of their life, because it is a financial asset, especially in the Australian economy, which all of the economy revolves around. You are actually entering into a trade, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And it is a trade that is completely skewed against you from the perspective of one, paying off the mortgage, and then have the other side of the trade, which is like the fact that most people can never increase their income enough to ever get ahead of those mortgage repayments by any meaningful metric. The answer to the question of what you will be doing for the next 30 years is already predetermined.
Yeah.
And if you want to live your life that way, then so be it. But I do not,
Yeah.
because I do not see that as freedom. I would rather be poor and free than the illusion of being somewhat comfortable but stuck permanently working without the ability to ever stop working because I couldn't have home security if that occurred.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. I don't think you'll be
But I'm
poor
also
and
not
free.
poor.
Yeah, I was going.
Well, I'm already not poor, so it's fine. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah. I don't think you're going to be poor. I think you'll be fine. Yeah. I had a few questions. I think when you touched on do nothing jobs, did you have any thoughts or considerations around, I guess, the buzzword or terminology about AI and how that might change working jobs over the years?
Well, I think that AI will replace huge segments of most privately run industry. But I
Yeah.
think that in economies, again, I don't want to talk too much about Australia, but it's just what I know of, like where it is, a huge proportion of the working adults work for the government. I don't think they'll ever allow those AI tools into the government because it would make them, you know, like it would make huge sectors of the government redundant.
Yeah.
And then if they were redundant, they would be unemployed.
Yeah.
And if they were unemployed, they could not enter the workforce anymore. So there would be the job statistics would be like just astronomically bad for any governing party. So it would end up like an economy like Japan where, you go to buy a railway ticket at the station, and like one guy takes the payment, one person gives you the ticket, and one person gives you the change, because it's like they keep so many people in these bullshit jobs just to keep the economy afloat, and basically have them as, it's a form of, universal basic income,
Yeah.
but through jobs specifically.
Yeah.
And so the government will never adopt AI regardless of how efficient it is, because it would make the core function of governing, which is control, less controllable. Some sectors will absolutely embrace it, like intelligence services and like federal bodies and stuff like that. But for the basic government wage cut, that will never happen. I think it will absolutely shred the private sector
Yeah.
and make most people unemployed in the private sector, who will then come and work for government, by the way. So we'll end up with this kind of like Soviet era, 70% of the populace works for the government kind of economies,
Yeah.
which is, and then you have like the top 10% performing trillion-dollar companies, which are basically oligarchies at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it will be a very fragmented society where there will be those in the upper echelon, in the top 10%, who have like, the houses and the best jobs and access to liquidity and capital and, crypto exposure and stuff like that, versus the huge, I'll call it unwashed masses of government employees who are capped at X amount of money for life, paying off their mortgages and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes,
I
but
find
that's how it will go.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the government will look to kind of, like you said, similar to Japan, will implement like a UBI where they try and keep as many people employed, and then the private sector will look to just shred as many like jobs as possible to be the most profitable sort of company. Um,
Correct.
yeah,
Efficiency versus intentional inefficiency.
yeah, and hopefully, all of those people that get cold from the private sector, they either enter crypto or they join the three-man coal team that we're trying to build out. You know, for
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess it's pretty philosophy heavy, this discussion, but like the long and short of it is like, you basically can write down like what's going on right now on paper
yep,
and go, okay, none of this is fair to me. I should then take the fairest opportunity presented to myself, which is probably crypto, because it's the like an untapped frontier for the average person to make some degree of money on the side without running a business or being a drug dealer,
Yep.
right? So like it's a legal way of doing that. And so you have the answer to the question already. I mean, the only spanner in the works is if some fucking revolution or major government overhaul comes down the line. But like again, if that happens, it's good for you anyway. Like you can't plan for that. You have to plan that it's not going to work out and take steps against that to make it work out for you. And then if it ends up working out anyway, that's good regardless, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't want to have blind faith in the system.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. What's my other question I had here? Yeah, okay. So if you had any advice to someone starting out in crypto today, what would you say to them and how would you guide them?
Mm, I think if they were starting out today, I would just say like DCA into the majors and
Yeah,
then get on crypto Twitter and digest information and go read white papers on about new protocols and stuff like that
yeah,
and get into some group chats and talk with other people in the industry. Don't try and be a trader. Like spend 6 months just like absorbing information, and then if you think you are passionate about it and understand enough, then maybe look at, you know, I don't know if it's going down or going up the risk curve to take more like risk exposure through maybe trading some meme coins or some like utility tokens or DeFi Ponzi tokens and stuff like that, or like converting some of your savings into stable coins and farming yield and stuff like that. So like just progressively and iteratively step up the exposure to risk,
yeah,
but do it on a basis of knowledge first. Don't just come in and try and hit the Solana casino.
yeah, yeah. And I like the fact that you said take 6 months to absorb info to see if you actually enjoy it as well.
Yeah, because most people won't. They will hate it, and then they'll realize like, well, it's not actually an industry that I can participate in. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's the when you say they hate it, do you think it's the fact that they don't win or they don't understand it or it's like they
They
just arrive, it's
probably
not
don't win.
they probably don't win. Yeah.
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 And also, it's a huge time sink. Like, I'm trying to explain to people, like, man, like, I was busy 16 hours that day. And they're like, doing what? And I'm just like, absorbing information. Like, because if you don't know what's going on, you're not up to date and you can fall behind and lose a lot of money that way. Or
Yeah.
you can not see like a lane of opportunity and not be able to walk that path. So like it isn't for everybody. Like as much as I was shitting on wages and stuff like that, like they just like they want to work 9 to 5. They want to be able to turn their brain off after work and stuff like that. So like to be participating in like this like super fast paced financial system is literally not what most people want to do. So there is an element of that to take into consideration as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned on DCAing into majors. Does that sort of reflect your view of the longevity of like Bitcoin and Ethereum? Or do you believe what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say like do you perceive it as that they're going to be of value now and then in the future they're still going to be of value? Is that how you're sort of seeing
Well,
DCA and majors?
it's more of like, again, it's not, I'm not giving people financial advice on that,
Yep.
but I'm more saying like, what is the least risky thing you can do in a market? And it's probably take exposure to the most stable assets in that market over time,
Yeah.
right? And so, and again, like that may or may not make you money in the short term, but if you think that the entire market cap of crypto will expand exponentially and those top tokens will expand, you know, greater than, you know, orders of not magnitude, but a greater degree to, I don't know how to say this, but like they'll expand more
Yeah.
than the rest of crypto, then you want to have exposure to them. But there is also the parallel argument that the total market cap of crypto could expand and there could just be more tokens in the system and
Yeah.
the price point of those things could just cap out. But I don't think that that is the argument that could ever be made for Bitcoin, but I think that could be made for Ethereum. As much
Yeah.
as Ethereum people hate to hear it, they'll hate to hear it, despite the fact that Ethereum over the last 5 years has never broken past that $4,800 mark, right? So like
Yeah.
all the evidence has been against it, whereas Bitcoin has been, up and up and up and up only.
Yeah. Do you think ETH will have enough juice in it to get to new all-time highs?
I don't know. I mean, what does it do to deserve it? Like, it's kind of my opinion. Like, yeah, I mean, it's the number 2 coin, but like the foundation doesn't treat it as such. They're always selling it.
Yeah.
I think the Bitcoin narrative just is unchallengeable.
Mm.
But they'll definitely, again, like I don't know. I don't know if it gets to all time highs. Like, it got to all time high in a very specific part of like the economic conditions, like stimmy and like post COVID, or COVID, yeah, post COVID boom, like extreme spending and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people were, under lockdowns and like basically participating only in the digital economy.
Yeah.
So that was also a factor in it as well.
Mm.
You can't recreate those conditions. So I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer, but like, I personally will continue to trade those assets. Like, I have loaded up liquidity to deploy on substantial pullbacks, and I just didn't commit to my plan in doing it through the China trade tariff FUD, where I knew that I should have.
Yeah.
And that was a 70% swing back to the upside, or more for certain tokens. So like, you could certainly do that. You could just trade and like wait for not black swan events, but like, the eventual. I think the market will heavily pull back again, even though people don't think it will, and we'll see prices like 1,500 ETH again,
Yeah.
maybe 1,200 ETH again, Bitcoin at 70K again, or something like that. And then you just wait and take exposure there. But like, whether they go to all-time highs again now or in another cycle or something, I have no clue. Like, you just can't judge it. Maybe we're in a post-cycle world as well, where these ETFs just keep us in a permanent state of kind of like crab momentum,
Yeah.
sideways stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always thought that Ethereum had this great fundamental reason to go up, and that was because I hold it and I deserve to have new
Yeah,
all-time
yeah.
highs. That was the sound investment thesis that I developed, which was, kept me very profitable all these years, which I'm sure of. Now I've only got like a couple more questions because I know you've put some food on and you haven't eaten it yet, and you spent 2 hours here yapping to me. So. Um, I had a question which was a little bit left field, which was, did you envision you'd be doing something different instead of crypto before you entered the crypto space?
Um, I didn't really have like any substantive long-term plan.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of different things in the past, like, but I, yeah, like at the point in which I entered crypto, I was already like, I was working as a product designer as well. So like, I had that to fall back on. Like, it was like a kind of interesting career, but that would have been made redundant by AI basically in the next couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I never really was like, oh, I want to be like a lawyer or something. I'm not like 20 years old either. Like, I'm in my 30s and stuff. So like, I've had time to figure out what I want to do and things like that. I was just always like, what is an alternative kind of lifestyle that I can live, and like maybe looking at working overseas and stuff like that. Like, I just never really cared about like, you know, being sitting around in an office or like working a traditional career, because I just think that it's a waste of life, to be honest. I'd much rather, kill my own time. What's that John Lennon quote? Like, time spent doing nothing, or doing what you like is not wasted time or something. I don't know. Like, even if that's doing nothing, even if you're just watching movies for the rest of your life, like, I feel like that's, if you like doing it, it's not time wasted.
Yeah. I'll keep that in mind on my sick day, I reckon. If I just want to load up like Pirates of the Caribbean or something, I'll just be like, yeah, this is good use of time. You know?
Yeah, it is. A good use of time is doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be consistently tied to some form of productivity? Like, that's a current like capitalist myth. Again, I sound like I'm anti-capitalist, which is not true. I'm like very pro money, very pro making money, but I'm just looking at the philosophy of it and the ethics of it. It's like, we're all conditioned to be like constantly productive, but like, bro, fucking cavemen weren't constantly productive. They were sitting around their ass half the time. Same with peasants in the old medieval days. Like, they would work half the year and then half the year do fuck all. They would just sit around drinking ale all the time and like eating meat
Yeah.
like by the fire, right? And or like, and then engaging in their hobbies, like weaving baskets and like making clothing and stuff like that. We just don't do that in modern society because
Yeah.
we always work. So we don't have any downtime. So we don't have any hobbies. And so we're constantly stuck in this metric of like doing things equals good, and that's productive, and productive is what everybody should be. So if we see someone not doing something, they must be lazy, and therefore lazy is unproductive, and that's not good. That's not part of society.
Yeah.
But like that's not how like society has worked throughout the entirety of history up until like the last 150 years.
Yeah.
So like we are the outlier in that perspective.
Yeah. We can't drink ale and just eat meat 7 days a week. We actually have to like.
We could if we overthrew the government and had a I don't know, some sort of like renaissance into
Yeah.
like the past. But like, yeah, that's another thing as well. Like, this is off topic, but like, people should be banking on nostalgia because that'll be an extremely profitable product stream in the future.
I think so too. That's why I own Kevin's from Pixelmon. If you haven't heard the news from the very reliable source that is myself, they're going to be worth
Oh, he's
2,000
back.
ETH at some point. So yeah, make sure you get excited about that.
Kevin, that's a blast from the past.
You also mentioned that you weren't anti-capitalism and that you were obviously a bit of a profit maxi, but I think our audience, from looking at the background image here, could probably have deduced that as well. If they did some creative, examining of the potential flag and some of the other things that have been hidden, yeah, I definitely think
The
that.
Greek restaurant.
Yeah. But Boot, that's literally all my questions, man. And so, yeah, really appreciate you coming on, sharing some alpha. I know, yeah, Dark messaged me saying that he tuned in and thought it was really valuable. So, yeah, appreciate you taking the time. Um, Obviously, I felt like I've been the person learning off you in this conversation, but did you have any questions for me quickly before you wanted to jump off?
I mean, no, I mean, thanks for having me on, and like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to talk about this stuff, and like, I think my perspective is different to a lot of people's perspective, but like, I just like genuinely sit down and like want to answer these questions, and like, so I'll overlay that onto any industry that I'm kind of involved in. But I do think there is a broader question as to like why people participate in crypto and what the psychology behind that is, and like what the philosophy of life is, in being a contrarian. And that side of crypto is underrepresented
Mm.
on CT because it mostly becomes about gambling and stuff like that. So I think there's multiple ways to look at these kinds of things, and that's just my particular lens. But yeah, I'm always happy to come on and talk about this stuff again. But like, it'll probably always skew towards this kind of conversation. So yeah.
No, it's all good. I definitely felt like I learned a lot, man, and I'm hoping the people that joined us on Twitch learned some things too. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll make sure that Boot's contact information, no, his contact information, his
At
his
lowercaseboot on Twitter, give me a follow.
yeah, easy. There you go. That'll also be included in the show notes as well as the timestamps. And yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in and having a listen. And if you got something valuable out of it, that's awesome. So yeah, Boot, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate the time.
No worries, man. Anytime. Chat soon.
Chat soon.
Do 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 do.